Hey folks, this is Kelani. It looks like the problem with island expeditions might not be the island expeditions at all. It could just be that we're playing the islands the wrong way. We'll get into that point in more detail a little later on, but it seems like Blizzard may have pulled the wool over our eyes a little bit with this one because of how the island expedition loot tables are set up. It's actually really surprising and just a little bit funny that we're only just and so figuring out how the islands work and what you have to do to get the special rewards at the end of each expedition. Remember that you can get mounts, you can get pets, you can get gear and more artifact power and rep items, all from running a few islands. But you might never have seen any of this stuff. 50 islands down and you might have only seen one quest item or one piece of gear. The dev team says they've buffed the rewards multiple times already, but you're still not seeing anything useful or interesting. Well, why is that? Let's have a look at how the island's loot seems to work and why we've all been playing island expeditions the wrong way. So what's this wrong way I'm talking about? Surely the aim of the game is to win the island, and we're all winning our islands, right? I know I haven't lost to the opposite faction in a very long time. While leveling, I actually queued into an island where someone decided to completely AFK until the Alliance were already 4,500 Azerite ahead of us. With it being a normal island, that's a close call for sure, but we still managed to eke out a win after harassing the Alliance so they couldn't collect any more Azerite. That might have been the most fun island expedition I've played in a very long time, but I still didn't get any loot for my glorious victory. So what gives? Well, let me paint you a picture. You just joined into your island, you might pick up an item or two from the vendor while you wait for the countdown. You pull a whole bunch of mobs, AoE them down, mine all the Azerite nodes you can find, and start looking for the Unbound Azerite event that you know is going to spawn, because let's be honest, it spawns every single time. You take down the elementals, mine everything in sight, and maybe pick up a little chest or two on your way around. For a normal island, you're pretty much guaranteed to be done by that point. That's how a lot of people are playing island expeditions, because it's the fastest way to win. But that's not necessarily the best way to get the mounts, pets, or other rewards. For heroic or mythic islands, you might pull more monsters, kill a few rares, and be done a few minutes later. You might also notice that in heroic and mythic islands, you end up getting more quest items and shinier rewards a little more often than normal islands. That might be to do with it being a higher difficulty, but it's actually more to do with that extra little bit of Azerite you need to win, which usually comes from rares. I've said multiple times that I feel islands don't offer any reward for exploration or diverging from this Zerg mentality of go, 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 kill, kill, kill. Islands just didn't feel like they were making good use of the design of the system. Having rare events or rare monsters drop loot on the island seemed way more interesting, because then you could hunt around for some awesome goodies instead of just bashing your head against the Azerite wall until you won the island. Well, as it turns out, that's exactly how the islands work. We just didn't know about it for a variety of reasons, but the most important one is that all we cared about was winning. Getting that bar filled up before the opposite faction seemed to be the main focus of the island expeditions, so we worked on figuring out the most efficient ways to clear the islands as quickly as possible to complete the weekly quest and to get the rewards for winning the island itself. We knew islands had a bunch of rewards tied to them, and seeing as we didn't have any more information on the matter, and the only time you receive any form of reward is at the end of each island, we chalked it all up to RNG. You might get something cool, you might get nothing. The only way to increase your chances of getting these cool rewards is to grind islands to death. But that's not really the case. Every named rare you kill on the islands seems to contribute to your potential loot when you finish the island. I've had plenty of artifact power quests, a few reputation quests, some pieces of gear, and even a pet while leveling my death knight through islands, and honestly most of that was by accident. So just playing around on islands and focusing on killing more named rare monsters should hopefully give you a better chance of getting these cool rewards. But why hasn't anyone talked about this previously? Honestly, probably because islands were a tool to farm artifact power efficiently, and many players just didn't look past that. Until very recently, when the experience reward from islands was buffed significantly for characters 110 to 120, islands suddenly became a very efficient leveling method if you could handle grinding island after island after island, but that meant a lot of players were playing a lot of island expeditions, and I guess it just took that extra push for something to click. While playing through one island in particular, I remember killing a Nerubian rare with a weird name. And if this wasn't the very last bit of Azerite we needed to finish the island, I might not even have paid enough attention to catch this, but after we killed that Nerubian, I received a quest item for some additional artifact power. The quest item was named after that rare. It was literally named Vorus Arax Carapace. That made me question whether these quest rewards were really tied to activities on the island, and in a later island I received a Murloc Eye after knowing I killed a named Murloc. So it was beginning to think this wasn't just a coincidence. Apparently I wasn't the only one, because a huge research dump appeared on the WoW subreddit talking about island expeditions and how we're going about things all wrong. Loot received has a very strong correlation with the named rares you killed during the island expeditions, and actually has nothing at all to do with winning the island itself. You can lose every island you play and still get the mounts and pets and gear. Rewards come from populating your loot table by killing rares, as well as collecting special chests, and seemingly nothing else. I encourage you to go give it a shot, especially now that islands have been buffed several times. Chances are if you focus on killing the named rares that spawn, especially with events, you should get something shiny pretty quickly. You should maybe try to get a group of friends together for this though. I can imagine hopping into a random queue and trying to hunt named rares instead of mining Azerite and whatnot might not keep you in their good books very long, and you'll end up just taking longer overall and not getting much else done. I've seen a few rare farming groups in the group finder. You could try hop into one of those, or maybe even start your own. When everyone is working towards the same goal, everything goes a lot faster, which means you get to play more islands and hopefully get more loot. Named rares can be found all over the islands, and they usually make up a good part of the events, like trolls landing on the beaches. Hunt the ones that should spawn at the start of every island, and then keep a watchful eye out for any large events. From the testing that I've done personally, Heroic Islands seem to be the best to farm right now. Mythic Islands take longer, which means you should be able to kill more rares, except the higher Azerite requirements mean you can kill all of the rares on an island without getting close to finishing. That means you have a higher risk of actually losing the island, but it's also time taken away from rare farming. The opposite faction are also a pain in the rear to kill. They just take so long to die. That's not the case on Heroic, so if they show up or you catch them trying to kill one of your precious rares, you can slap them down fairly easily. So what's the chances of you losing these islands just so you can run around looking for rares? While the go 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 plan might not be the most ideal when hunting for some cool rewards, it definitely guarantees you the artifact power from winning the islands. If the artifact power is that important to you, maybe you should stick to just blitzing the entire thing, because there is a real chance you're going to lose while trying to just kill rares. It's not that rares don't give a decent amount of Azerite, it's just that it takes a lot longer to run around looking for them when compared to smashing anything and everything in sight. The two objectives really do go against each other in this case, which is really frustrating and something I would hope Blizzard does something about. Winning the island and hunting for loot take you down two very different paths right now, which I think is quite poor design. With that being said, I didn't lose any of my islands, even the mythic ones, while just hunting for rares. I came close a few times, but after killing the Alliance, they tend to fall behind quite far. So while it does take quite a bit longer to complete an island while aiming to maximize your loot, you don't have to resign yourself to an automatic loss each time, but it's still really frustrating that you sort of have to choose between the two. I know there's probably one question on a lot of people's minds at this point. We know how to work towards the loot now, that's great, but how do we go about farming for a specific mount or pet that you're interested in? The bad news is that you can't really target farm any specific reward. You can cross your fingers and hope for the best, but even focusing on rares isn't going to guarantee you certain items or pieces of loot. That's because of how island loot tables work. Each rare you kill can give you a chance to get any of their related items on the loot table, but nothing is ever going to be 100%. But that doesn't mean you can't narrow it down. If you want the parrot mount, for example, that's going to be tied to pirates. So if you make sure you kill all of the pirate rares you find on an island, you're increasing the chance you'll end up with the parrot mount. The same goes for pets, quest items, and gear. Monster types or races that you kill will contribute different pieces of loot to your end of island rewards. The problem is that if the ties aren't obvious, we don't really know what to kill, which can be both frustrating but also very exciting. I've just been plowing through the islands, killing all the rares I could find and seeing what I could get. So far, I've received 2 pets, 6 quest items, and 5 pieces of bind on equip gear. That's not too bad for the 7 or 8 islands that I've run, and I'm actually having some fun with it. 5 of those quests reward 700 AP each, which is a pretty big chunk of artifact power for knocking out a few islands now and then. Something that I totally glanced over until it was pointed out over on Wowhead is that you can actually see what types of creatures you can expect on the various islands for the current week. I'm sure some quest rewards are tied to the islands themselves, but the creature type will dictate what kinds of rewards you will get as well. If you want to check the monster type, all you need to do is head on over to your island table. The little pictures are the monsters, so for the Dread Chain map you should expect to see Cavaldia, the Ungol Ruins will have lots of Quillboars, and the Rotting Mire will have pirates. So if you want the Parrot mount, hope for the Rotting Mire map and kill all of the pirate rares you see. The same goes for any other reward you can tie to the Quillboars or the Cavaldia. As the weeks go by and we get more and more info about what rewards come from which combination of islands and monsters, we should have a pretty good idea when you can get certain rewards. I still can't believe we've had access to the islands for so long, yet this information has eluded so many of us, myself included. It took islands becoming a viable leveling method to get enough players in there, exploring things properly for things to start making more sense. Because the rares themselves don't have a loot table, the way in which the island rewards were data mined ended up being more mysterious. It's not a case of kill ABC rare on XYZ map. The only info we were really able to data mine was the entire list of rewards that somehow come from island expeditions. This might seem insignificant to most of you, but I agree with the chap who created a huge thread on Reddit. The user named Flack Knight pointed out that this is the first time in a very long time that we've had to do some actual exploring of both a new system and how it works. We had to piece this one together ourselves. We couldn't just rely on the whole puzzle being data mined and put together at the same time. We got a jumbled mess and had to work through it ourselves, which to me is really exciting. With how data mining and patch testing has evolved, we know almost everything that we're going to get before we get it. Only a few well-hidden secrets managed to slip between the cracks, and I'm sort of happy that something this huge has taken us this long to figure out. For a quick recap, just in case you zoned out partway through my rambles, if you want to get some loot from islands, whether it be mounts, pets, gear, or 700 artifact power quests, try to focus on the named rares when you head into island expeditions, instead of just trying to rush the completion bar to the end. You might end up having more fun, you'll probably get way more loot, and you might actually be playing the island expeditions the way they were supposed to be played. Fancy that. I'm really interested to see the changes in 8.1 and whether they will sort of force this type of gameplay, because they're supposed to be reducing the amount of monsters in general, having mobs way more clustered instead of spread out, and they're grouped up with rares, and I think they're taking away a lot of the Azeroth ore nodes as well. I can't wait for the PTR to come up so I can play around with it, but that's it for this video. Have you noticed any changes in your island expeditions recently? Are you more willing to give islands a shot now that we know how to get the mounts and pets? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.